Hello, my name is Jocelyn Williams, and myself and my group members will be presenting a discussion on the steel industry. My portion of the presentation will be the introduction to the steel industry and a brief financial analysis.
My name is Heather Hansen, and my portion of the presentation will be about the two different types of steel mills that there are. There's traditional integrated steel mills, and then newer recycling mini mills is what they're called. Then I'm also going to give a little bit about what happened in 2002 when the Bush administration imposed tariffs on foreign steel.
Hi, my name is Seth Yan, and I'm going to be discussing Michael Porter's Five Forces model.
My name is Justin Wolf. I'm going to be talking about some threats, weaknesses, opportunities of the steel industry, giving some brief predictions about the future steel industry, and wrapping up my presentation.
The steel industry has been in business for more than 150 years. Currently, China is the leader in steel production with 489,241 tons. The United States produced 98,181 tons of steel in the same year. Due to the diversity of steel and its many purposes, the steel industry is extremely diverse. The National Association of Industry Classification Systems has more than 25 different classifications for steel industry. In the past, the steel industry has been predominantly vertically integrated, which means that each company mined the ore and then manufactured the ore to produce a product. The steel industry is also extremely fragmented and in the mature stage of the life cycle. Due to this industry composition, there have been a significant amount of mergers and acquisitions within the steel industry, and the trend of merger and acquisition activity is not regionally located within the United States alone. It is a global trend. The steel companies that comprise most of the market share globally are international businesses. Nucor and AK Steel Holdings are the only United States-based companies that are in the top 10 competing for market share. An overwhelming statistic is that the United States accounted for only 8% of the total world production in 2006. Currently, according to reports from the American Iron and Steel Institute, steel exports were 9.7 million tons in 2006, but is not comparable to the 45.3 million tons of imported steel that same year. Financial distress within any industry is very difficult to pinpoint. And as shown in Appendix 3, the top four performing steel companies in the United States have all the same trend, which means that all of the companies are equally reactive to market changes and equally affected. The capital structures of these companies are similar and an indicator of why one company performs better than it produces. With merger and acquisition activities being the new way to grow in a mature industry, the underperforming another company is more related to the exact steel production or product that the companies may not be able to maintain their share as the other steel companies become larger, more vertically integrated, and more efficient.
There are basically two different types of steel mills, traditional integrated steel mills and newer EAF mini mills, which are used for recycling steel. EAF stands for electric arc furnace, and these mini mills are relatively newer. Instead of mining for steel, mini mills use steel scrap, which is then recycled into the new steel. Compared to making steel in basic oxygen furnaces, EAF steel making is much slower. However, in addition to being environmentally friendly by recycling in the first place, the use of an EAF also conserves 1.25 tons of iron ore, 0.5 tons of coal, and 40 pounds of limestone for every ton of steel recycled. 1 year of recycling steel allows companies to save enough energy to power 18 million homes for an entire year. Now, almost every car taken off the road is recycled for steel, which makes cars the most recycled consumer product in the world. Although mini mills cannot compete on the same level of production as integrated steel mills, they do have many production advantages over traditional steel mills. Mini mills can be located many more places than traditional mills because they do not need to be near railroads or water transportation systems. They simply need to be located near high availabilities of electricity and scrap steel, and there must be a local market for their products. The use of mini mills has grown considerably over the past 40 years. In 1960, mini mills accounted for only 8.4% of total U.S. raw steel production, But by the end of 2000, mini mills produced 47% of the U.S.'s steel production. The use of mini mills is certainly growing and seems to be the future of steel production in the U.S. Although the U.S. has been capitalizing on the steel industry as much as possible by using mini mills, the industry is still seeing hard times and has reacted in many ways, some of which were unsuccessful. One example of this was the tariffs imposed on foreign steel in 2002. The Bush administration had the International Trade Commission investigate the possibility of steel dumping and to find if the imported steel was effectively harming the domestic industry. The U.S. simply had to show that it did not have the demand for the foreign steel being imported into the United States. The ITC did determine that there was dumping of foreign steel imports, and Bush was authorized to impose tariffs to allow for a time of positive adjustment. The result of this investigation was that an average of a 30% tariff was imposed on imported steel. There was so much resistance to the tariffs that by August of 2002, however, the legislation was effectively undone because so many exceptions were made to the imposition of the tariffs. Although only in place for 6 months, the tariffs on imported steel had many negative effects on the industry and the U.S. They alienated trade partners and diminished the U.S.'s trade negotiation credibility. Other countries who were counting on exporting steel to the United States were so upset about the tariffs that they retaliated in other industries, such as when Russia placed an embargo on U.S. chickens. The 2002 tariffs on imported steel proved to be quite detrimental to the U.S. steel industry and had almost the opposite effect of what was planned.
Michael Porter's Five Forces model includes the threat of substitutes, the threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, competitor rivalry, which includes the foreign competition. Threat of substitutes is the biggest issue in this entire model. Aluminum and high-strength plastic are a distinct competitor to steel. 50 years ago, steel was used in many, many more things than it is now, including the car industry. The automotive industry was one of the biggest buyers of steel. Now, the automotive industry buys aluminum and high-strength plastic because they're cheaper, easier to use, and just overall better product than steel is. This has happened throughout many other industries, and so threat of substitutes is a major issue in this model. The threat of new entrants into the steel industry is extremely low. There are very high costs associated with entering the steel industry. Starting your own mill costs so much money that there are very few steel mills that are able to begin production. The ones that are now under production are the ones that are going to be continuing production from now on. Bargaining power of suppliers is very small in some parts of the industry, but much larger in other parts of the industry. That's because there are firms such as U.S. Steel, which are extremely vertically integrated. They obviously have no bargaining power. The production of the steel that comes through the process for U.S. Steel, has no bargaining power at all. However, in other parts of the steel industry, such as mini mills, bargaining power is a little greater because firms such as Nucor, which is a mini mill, gets their production, their raw steel or raw product from scrap industries in their region. And those scrap metal dealers themselves don't have any bargaining power, but there's a brokerage firm that represents the scrap industry, and the brokerage firms negotiate prices with the firms such as Nucor. The bargaining power of buyers is also very low. Bargaining power, or the price of steel for buyers, is just predicated on global supply and demand, so there's really low bargaining power of buyers. That's really a non-existent issue in the model. Competitive rivalry is a very big deal right now because the U.S. steel industry is on the decline, and the global steel industry is dominating the steel market because they can produce much cheaper steel, and it's just as good a quality as U.S. steel firms. So there's a major competition between foreign firms and global firms and U.S. firms.